My family told me no kids allowed at the Christmas party this year, not even my little boy. I understood, until I walked in and saw my sister's 3 kids sitting by the tree, opening gifts. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name's Lena, and I never thought a simple Christmas party could change how I saw my own family. It started a few weeks before Christmas when my mom called. Her voice was sweet but firm. "Honey, this year, your dad and I decided to make the party adults only. It'll just be easier, less chaos." I tried to sound understanding. "Of course, Mom. That's fine." But inside, my heart dropped. My son Eli is only 6. He loves Christmas more than anything. He's the kind of kid who writes letters to Santa in July. Still, I didn't argue. I wanted to respect their wishes and avoid drama. On the day of the party, I left Eli with a babysitter. He hugged me tight, asking, "Will Grandma miss me?" I told him she would. I lied. When I arrived at my parents' house, everything looked perfect. The smell of pine and cinnamon filled the air, and soft Christmas music played. I hung my coat and smiled, trying to push away the guilt of leaving my son behind. Then I stepped into the living room and froze. 3 little voices shouted, "Merry Christmas!" My sister, Callie, stood by the tree with her husband, and there, sitting in their pajamas, were her 3 kids, Mara, Jet, and Poppy, tearing into presents. I thought maybe I was dreaming. My mom came over, smiling nervously. "Oh, honey, we made an exception." Callie didn't have anyone to watch them. My stomach turned. An exception? So the rule didn't really matter, just who it applied to. I tried to keep my voice steady. "So no kids except hers?" Mom patted my arm like I was being silly. "It's just easier this way, Lena. You know how you get stressed." That word you hit like a slap. Suddenly, I was the problem. Again, I sat quietly through dinner, pretending everything was fine, but my eyes kept drifting to the kids opening gifts near the tree. Every time they laughed, I thought of Eli sitting at home, waiting for me. When Callie handed out gifts from her kids to everyone, that I sat at the edge of the couch, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Callie laughed with our parents like nothing had happened, her voice filling the room as if she owned it. Her kids ran around with candy canes, unwrapping toys that apparently Santa left early. No one seemed to notice how quiet I was. Or maybe they did, and didn't care. My mom poured herself more eggnog, glancing at me once before turning back to Callie. "Oh, we made an exception," she said, as if that explained everything. Her tone was light, dismissive, the kind of tone she used whenever I brought up something uncomfortable. "An exception," I repeated, barely above a whisper. I wanted to ask why the rule didn't apply to them, but what was the point? I already knew the answer. It never had. Growing up, Callie could do no wrong. If she forgot chores, Mom said she was busy. If I forgot, I was lazy. When she got into college, there was a big dinner to celebrate. When I got my scholarship, Mom said, "That's nice, dear," and went back to her crossword. I told myself it didn't bother me back then, but sitting in that room now, surrounded by decorations and fake smiles, it all came rushing back. Callie leaned over the table, showing Dad a picture of her kids in matching pajamas. He laughed so hard his eyes watered. I watched him, waiting for that same warmth to reach me, but it didn't. It never did. I tried to sip my drink, but my hand trembled. "This party was supposed to be for adults," I said softly, my eyes on the tree. Mom didn't even look at me. "It's Christmas, Lena. Don't make a fuss." The words sank deep. I'd heard that line my whole life. Every time I tried to stand up for myself. Callie's kids squealed as they opened another round of gifts. Shiny wrapping paper covered the floor like snow. I noticed something then, the tags. Each one had names written in Mom's neat handwriting. To Mara, to Jet, to Poppy. My chest tightened. There wasn't one for Eli. Not a single one. I stared at the empty space under the tree, remembering how Mom used to tape candy canes to our presents when we were kids. I could almost smell the peppermint, hear her humming carols. Back then, I believed love was equal. I was wrong. I excused myself to the hallway, pretending to check my phone just to breathe. From where I stood, I could hear laughter echoing through the house, my family happy and whole, without me and my boy. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about no kids. It was about keeping us out. Me, the single mom. Him, the reminder that I didn't fit their picture-perfect frame. For the first time in my life, I saw it clearly. The rules never applied to them, only to me. I waited until everyone was distracted before pulling Mom aside. She was arranging cookies on a tray, humming like everything was normal. My heart pounded, but I forced my voice to stay calm. "Mom, can I ask you something? Why wasn't Eli allowed to come tonight?" She didn't look at me right away. Her hands kept moving, lining up sugar cookies in perfect rows. Finally, she sighed. "Honey, we just thought it would be too much for you. You know, single mom and all. You have enough on your plate." Her words hit like ice water. I stared at her, trying to understand. "Too much for me?" Or too much for you? Mom frowned, as if I was being unreasonable. Lena, please don't start. It's Christmas. We were just trying to help. Help. My voice cracked. By leaving my son out? Before she could answer, I heard Callie's voice from behind us. Oh, Lena, don't make this about you again. I turned to see her leaning in the doorway, arms crossed, that smug smile on her face. You always get so dramatic over small things. It's exhausting. Something twisted inside me. I wanted to scream, to tell them how small they made me feel, how hard it was pretending this didn't hurt. But instead, I took a slow breath. You know what, forget it. Mom shook her head. You're being sensitive. I laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. Sensitive, another word they used to shut me down. I looked at both of them, standing there like they were the reasonable ones, like I was the problem for caring. Callie picked up a cookie and took a bite. You should be grateful Mom even invited you, she said, crumbs falling onto her perfect sweater. That was it. The air in the room felt heavy, thick with every unspoken word I'd swallowed for years. I turned away before they could see the tears building in my eyes. Enjoy your party, I said quietly. As I grabbed my coat, Mom called after me, Lena, don't make a scene. I didn't. I just kept walking. The cold air outside stung my cheeks, but it felt cleaner than the air inside. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Through the window, I could see the house glowing, full of laughter that didn't belong to me anymore. Tears came fast, hot and silent. I thought of Eli, how excited he'd been, how he'd asked if Grandma would save him a cookie. I whispered into the darkness. Next year will be different. I swear it. Then I started the car and drove away, leaving the party, and a piece of my heart behind. The days after that night felt strange. The house was quiet, too quiet. Christmas decorations still hung in the living room, but they looked dull now, like they belonged to someone else. I kept moving them around, pretending to tidy up, but really I was trying to stop thinking. No one called. Not my mom, not my dad, not even Callie. It was as if the evening hadn't happened at all. The group chat, though, came alive again a few days later. Pictures of smiling faces around the dinner table, captions full of laughter. Best Christmas ever. So blessed to have family. Each message landed like a punch. I stared at one photo for a long time. Callie's kids in matching sweaters, my parents standing proudly behind them. I looked for any sign that they missed Eli. There wasn't one. I deleted the chat and turned off my phone. Eli noticed my mood right away. Mom, did Grandma forget me? He asked one morning while eating cereal. His voice was soft, uncertain. I forced a smile, brushing his hair back. Of course not, sweetheart. She's just busy. The lie caught in my throat, but I couldn't let him see the truth. At night, after he fell asleep, I sat by his door and listened to him breathe. I thought about how many times I had brushed off little moments. When my parents praised Callie's choices but ignored mine. When family dinners turned into stories about her life, and I sat there nodding. I told myself it didn't matter. But now it did. Weeks passed. The world moved on, but inside me, something heavy settled. I stopped replying to messages. I skipped Sunday dinners. Mom left voicemails that sounded cheerful, never mentioning what happened, as if silence could erase it. Each call made me colder. Eli kept asking if we were going to Grandma's again. Every time I told him, not this week. He'd nod quietly, but I could see the disappointment in his eye. That look broke something in me. He deserved better, not just from them, but from me too. One night, I sat at the kitchen table long after midnight, staring at the half-empty cup of coffee in front of me. The house was still, except for the hum of the fridge. For the first time, I admitted to myself that my family had never really seen me, not as a daughter, not as a mother, not even as a person who mattered. The silence around me wasn't just absence anymore. It was a message. And in that silence, an idea began to grow, slow, certain, steady. I didn't know what it would look like yet, but I knew one thing. Next Christmas wouldn't belong to them. It would belong to us. By the time the snow melted and the first flowers pushed through the ground, something inside me had changed. The anger I carried through winter started to harden into resolve. I was done feeling small. I wanted a Christmas that felt like home, not the kind built from appearances, but one made from kindness and truth. Work became my focus. I took every extra shift I could, covering weekends and late nights. The paychecks grew a little heavier, and each time I tucked money away, I pictured Eli's face glowing under twinkling lights. That thought kept me going when I was too tired to stand. Spring turned to early summer, and I began planning quietly. Not the kind of party that needed perfect table settings or fancy food, just something real. I pictured a cozy dinner, candles flickering, laughter filling every corner. No one would feel left out, especially Eli. He would have his Christmas, no matter who showed up. At work, there was one person who always noticed when I seemed lost in thought. Noah, a coworker who somehow made the worst days lighter. He had a calm way about him, never prying, just listening. One evening, while we were closing up, he asked, "You're thinking hard about something. Planning a secret mission." I laughed for the first time in weeks. Maybe I am. Over coffee, I told him about the Christmas that broke me, how I wanted to make the next one different. He didn't interrupt or offer pity. When I finished, he just nodded. "Then let's make it happen." From then on, he helped me piece it together. He found an old wooden table someone was giving away and helped refinish it. We painted ornaments with Eli, strung handmade garlands, and planned simple dishes we could cook ourselves. Every weekend, the idea grew clearer. Not revenge in the cruel sense, but quiet proof that love couldn't be shut out. Eli started to notice, too. "Mom, are we making Christmas early?" he asked one afternoon, his hands sticky from painting stars. "Kind of," I said with a smile. "We're getting ready for a special one." The more we worked, the lighter I felt. I didn't need their approval anymore. What I needed was to show my son what real family looked like. As autumn crept in, my plan was nearly ready. I would invite everyone, even the ones who hurt me, but this time, I'd be in control. There would be no lies about who belonged. Noah helped me print invitations, simple cards with gold lettering. "You sure you want them there?" he asked. I nodded. "Yes. I want them to see what they threw away." It wasn't about payback anymore. It was about peace. And showing that grace, when chosen carefully, can be the sharpest form of revenge. By the first week of December, the house smelled like cinnamon and pine. Every corner glowed with soft light, garlands across the windows, candles on the table, a tree trimmed with ornaments Eli helped paint. It wasn't fancy, but it felt alive, real. One evening after work, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of cocoa and a stack of invitations. The cards were simple cream paper tied with thin red ribbon. Each one read, "Christmas Eve dinner, our home, 6 p.m. I wrote the names carefully: Mom, Dad, Callie, her husband, her kids. I didn't know if they'd come, but I wanted the choice to be theirs this time. When I dropped the envelopes in the mailbox, my hands trembled a little. It wasn't fear, more like release. I had spent a year holding my breath, and this was me letting it out. Days passed before I heard anything. My parents replied first, their message short: "We'll see if we can make it." No warmth, no excitement, just hesitation. Then Callie texted, "Sorry, we have other plans that night. Maybe next year." I read it twice, smiled faintly, and put the phone down. Of course she didn't think I could pull it off. But I didn't reply. I didn't beg. I just kept working. Eli and I spent the weekend baking cookies, laughing when flour covered the floor. Noah stopped by with a box of old string lights he'd fixed. When we plugged them in, the living room glowed like a postcard. "Looks like Christmas found its way back here," he said softly. A few days later, I sent one message to the family group chat, a single picture of the dining table. White cloth, golden candles, little stars scattered across the plates. No words attached, just the photo. The silence lasted about 5 minutes before the first reply came in. "Mom, oh honey, that looks lovely." Then Dad, "We'll be there." Callie's name appeared last. Turns out our plans changed. "Count us in." I stared at the screen, my lips curving into a small smile. It wasn't pride exactly, more a quiet satisfaction. For once, they were coming on my terms. That night, I walked through the house turning off lights one by one, letting the soft glow from the tree fill the room. Eli was asleep on the couch, clutching his stuffed bear. I brushed a bit of glitter from his cheek and whispered, "They'll see, sweetheart. They'll see what real Christmas looks like." Outside, snow had begun to fall, blanketing the street in white. The invitations had done their job. The stage was set. And this time, I wasn't walking into someone else's version of family. They were stepping into mine. The evening arrived crisp and clear, snowflakes drifting lazily against the dark sky. Inside, the house glowed in golden light. Candles flickered on every shelf, the tree shimmered softly, and the scent of baked apples and cinnamon filled the air. I stood in the doorway, adjusting a ribbon on the wreath, my heartbeat steady but strong. This was the night I had imagined for months. The first knock came right on time. Eli dashed toward the door, his face bright with excitement. When I opened it, my parents stood there bundled in coats, smiling nervously. Behind them, Callie and her family climbed out of their car, the kids chattering about the snow. For a moment, no one spoke. Then I stepped aside and said simply, "Come in." Warm air greeted them as they entered. Eli tugged at my sleeve. "Mom, can I give Grandma her cookie now?" I nodded, and he ran off to the kitchen. My mom's eyes scanned the room. The table set neatly, the lights dimmed just right, soft music playing from the old radio in the... "This looks beautiful, Lena," she said after a pause. "Thank you," I answered. My voice stayed calm, steady. Callie's gaze moved from the polished table to the garland draped across the mantel. Her lips curved into a half-smile. "You really went all out." I met her eyes. I wanted it to feel special. Dinner was quiet at first, just the sound of forks and Eli's laughter filling the space. Slowly, conversation started. Light talk about weather, work, the kids. My parents complimented the food. Even Callie admitted the pie was really good. Every word carried a trace of surprise. When the meal ended, I brought out a tray of hot chocolate topped with whipped cream. Eli passed around little gift bags he'd decorated himself, his pride glowing brighter than the candles. Watching him, I felt something inside me settle, a calm I hadn't felt in years. As wrapping paper crinkled and laughter softened, I reached under the tree and took out a small box wrapped in plain white paper. I handed it to my parents. "This one's from me." Mom opened it carefully. Inside was a framed photo, Eli grinning wide, his hands covered in paint from the day we made ornaments together. Beneath the frame was a note written in simple black ink. "For the Christmas you said he couldn't come." The sound in the room disappeared. No one moved. Callie's children stopped whispering, their small hands frozen midair. My father cleared his throat, but no words came. My mother stared at the photo, her eyes wide, guilt spreading across her face. Eli looked up at me, confused but smiling, unaware of the storm settling in the room. I placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, my gaze steady on the people who once decided he didn't belong. For the first time, the silence was theirs to sit in, not mine. No one moved at first. The only sound came from the faint hum of the radio in the background. My mother's fingers trembled as she held the frame, her eyes fixed on the picture. Callie shifted in her seat, forcing out a small laugh that didn't sound real. "Come on, Lena," she said lightly. "It's Christmas. Let's not make this awkward." I turned toward her. "Awkward?" My voice stayed calm, but there was no softness in it. "I just want to understand something. Why were your kids allowed at the party last year when mine wasn't?" The room tightened again. My mother finally set the photo down, her lips parting like she was searching for words. "Sweetheart, that night was complicated." "Complicated how?" I asked, keeping my eyes on her. Callie sighed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I begged them, okay? My husband was out of town, and it was just easier for me to bring the kids. You know how it is." I nodded slowly. "So you asked, and they said yes." My father cleared his throat. "We didn't want to put pressure on you. You've had a lot on your plate. We thought." "Don't," I interrupted, still calm. "Don't make this about me needing help. I never asked you to carry my life for me. I just wanted my son to be treated like family." No one spoke. Callie looked down at her hands. My mother opened her mouth again, then stopped. The truth hung heavy between us. It wasn't about convenience or kindness. It was about choice. For years, I had let moments like this pass. Times when my accomplishments were brushed aside, when Callie's smallest efforts were praised like miracles. I used to think if I stayed quiet long enough, they'd see me. But silence had only made me invisible. "I want you to know something," I said, my tone even. "That night, when I found out he wasn't welcome, I sat in my car for an hour. I told myself it was fine, that maybe next year would be different. But it wasn't. And it won't be, unless I stop pretending everything's okay." My father leaned back in his chair, his face pale. My mother blinked fast, still not meeting my eyes. Callie opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Eli, sitting quietly beside me, leaned his head against my arm, unaware of the meaning behind the silence. I smoothed his hair and kept my voice steady. "You don't have to apologize tonight," I said to them. "I just needed you to hear me for once." No one argued. No excuses this time. Just stillness, heavy, uncomfortable, but honest. And in that quiet, I finally felt something shift. Not in them, but in me. No one spoke after that. The room seemed to shrink, the glow from the candles flickering against faces that suddenly looked older, smaller. My mother stared at the photo on the table, her eyes glistening, her lips pressed together. My father's hands were folded tightly, his shoulders heavy. Callie, for once, had no clever words. She sat with her eyes on the floor, her confidence gone. Eli's small voice broke the silence. "Grandma," he said softly, holding a cookie in both hands, "you can come to my Christmas next time." The innocence in his tone cut through everything that had been left unsaid. My mother's breath hitched. She reached for the cookie, but her fingers shook too much to hold it steady. "Thank you, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice cracking. A single tear slid down her cheek and fell onto the tablecloth. I watched, quiet, not angry anymore, just still. Eli climbed onto my lap, unaware of the storm he had just calmed. His tiny hand wrapped around mine, and the room filled with the kind of silence that doesn't demand words. My father finally spoke, his voice low. "You raised a good boy, Lena." I didn't answer. There was nothing to say that wouldn't unravel what was already clear. This wasn't about who was right. It was about who chose love when it wasn't given back. Callie reached for her glass of water, eyes red. "I didn't mean to make things unfair," she said quietly. "I just thought." I shook my head. "It's okay, Callie. You don't have to explain." She nodded, looking down again. The sound of the clock ticking filled the pause that followed. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something close. A quiet understanding that truth had finally been spoken, and that it came with weight. Eli giggled softly, crumbs on his chin. He didn't see guilt or pride. He just saw family sitting together. That was enough for him. I turned toward the window, the snow outside still falling in slow, steady flakes. The reflection of the trees shimmered on the glass, the lights gentle and soft. My chest ached, but it wasn't from hurt anymore. It was release. No one apologized that night. No grand gestures, no sudden hugs. But as they gathered their coats and said goodbye, I saw it in their faces, a quiet regret, a dawning awareness of what they had done. When the door closed behind them, the house felt lighter. The quiet didn't sting this time. It soothed. I looked down at Eli, who was already asking for another cookie, and I realized the only peace I ever needed was right there, warm in my arms. Snow blanketed the town again, soft and quiet, like the year before. But everything felt different this time. The house was filled with the smell of pancakes and coffee instead of tension and unspoken words. Eli ran through the living room in his fuzzy socks, giggling as he tried to balance a Santa hat on his head. His laughter echoed against the walls, bright and free. I stood by the window, watching the flakes fall, remembering how empty the last Christmas had felt. This morning, warmth filled every corner, not from decorations or lights, but from the people inside it. A few friends from work had come over early, arms full of gifts and homemade pies. Noah was in the kitchen flipping pancakes, humming off-key while Eli tried to help by stirring syrup with a spoon too big for the bowl. "Don't let it burn," I called out, laughing as Noah pretended to salute. The air was light, easy. No pretending, no careful words, no worry about who fit in. Just simple joy. When breakfast was done, we gathered near the tree. The ornaments glowed softly, each one different, some store-bought, others made from paper and glitter. There were no perfect arrangements, no polished table settings. Yet it felt right. Every piece belonged, the way people should. Among the gifts on the floor was a small envelope addressed to me. The handwriting was familiar, my mother's. Inside was a plain Christmas card. "Thinking of you and Eli. Wishing you a lovely holiday." No apology, no invitation, just polite distance. I read it once, set it aside, and smiled faintly. It didn't hurt the way it once would have. Some things didn't need fixing. They just needed letting go. Eli climbed onto the couch beside me, holding a shiny ornament wrapped in tissue paper. "Can we hang this one now?" he asked. Inside was a photo Noah had printed. The three of us sitting by the fireplace, grins wide, cheeks flushed with laughter. "Perfect spot," I said, helping him reach the middle branch. We hung it together, our fingers brushing against the cool glass. The lights reflected off the photo, casting a golden glow across our faces. For a moment, everything stilled. The laughter from the kitchen, the snow outside, the warmth in my chest, it all blended into quiet peace. Eli looked up at me, eyes bright. "This is the best Christmas ever." I kissed the top of his head. "Yeah, it really is." As he ran off to show Noah his new toy, I lingered by the tree, staring at that single ornament. Two smiling faces framed in silver light, proof that love doesn't need permission, and family isn't always the one you're born into. Sometimes, it's the one you build when you finally stop waiting to be chosen. Do you think I made the right choice by walking away from my family, or should I have given them another chance? Tell me your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more stories like this.